What do legacy, history, and liquor have to do with the new business in Kadoka? When they're all stirred together, they're bridging one generation to another and the past to the present. Tonight, a small building, a small town, and a big dream along the way just off I-90 in Kadoka, South Dakota. In the 1920s and early 30s, Prohibition outlawed making and selling alcohol all across the U.S. But with folks still clamoring for alcohol, illegal homemade production of something known as Moonshine became all the rage, including right here in South Dakota. The Herber family has deep ranching roots in the nearby Weeda Valley, and details of their family's part in bootlegging in an old family journal.
It reads, "Besides farming, the boys also dabbled in other businesses. For a time, a few of them were moonshiners. Joe was the ringleader.
Joe also sold to politicians at the state capitol in Pierre. There, the delivery was made at the lake entrance of a basement tunnel."
One thing led to another, and January 1st of this year, Badlands Distillery was born, based on the bootlegging story of Joe Herber's Moonshine. The tasting room is tastefully created, with old-time tractor seats topping logs as bar stools, and the flavor of stepping back in time.
And he had flavored his carefully distilled clear liquor with brown sugar syrup. After the brew was tasted, tested, and beautifully colored, it was poured into casks and kegs that were charred on the inside.
Jim Herber and his friend Mark Eschenbacher are co-owners. It's a small crew, basically just Jim's daughter Shaylee and Mark's wife Sandy. Turns out, back in the day, there were 5 Herber brothers involved in the bootlegging biz, and the writer of this section of the journal may have been biased because she was, after all, their sister, Gertrude.
Joe soon had a reputation for producing the tastiest, most healthful, and smoothest whiskey in all of South Dakota Territory.
That old Moonshine, recreated to the best of their ability, is now sold as Special Reserve. Eventually, the bootlegging Herber brothers business did get busted. Shaylee Herber, age 22, would be their great-great-niece. Her father, Jim, would be their great-nephew. And these new generations would like to see their business take off.
Something that our great-great-uncle Joe could be especially proud of. I'm sure back during the Prohibition era when he was sitting there in jail, he couldn't hardly imagine that his family would someday continue on his story and his legacy. And
as for the present operation, they've added 5 new flavors. But for now, there's still a small artisan distillery. Co-owner Mark Eschenbacher is the distiller and says he's training Shaylee to be a distiller too.
We've probably sold about 3,500 bottles since January.
You may notice that there's a rattlesnake on the label of the Badlands Venom, and there's a pretty cool story to go along with that. That snake is also available on t-shirts. As the story goes, one day in the summer of 2015, the rattler wandered onto the sidewalk leading up to the front porch of Mark and Sandy's home, scaring a bunch of folks who were there.
They're all running around screaming. So I killed the rattlesnake, and then I thought, hey, wouldn't that look cool around one of our liquor bottles?
He says he was chosen to wrap the rattler around a liquor bottle for pictures to use for inspiration for their labels.
And what do they make? Venom. So that's how we locked onto that.
Co-owner Jim Herber spends most of his time out at the ranch. One of his jobs is growing the corn they need.
Dad cuts it down out there, grinds it up for us, brings it into the distillery, and we use that for some of our recipes actually, like our Badlands Venom, for example.
And over in this still, there's mash cooking. When Jim lifts the cover, we can see what this part of the process looks like. They have 2 labelers. One is a hand-cranking labeler, the other an electrical one. You could say the Moonshine business is back, linking generations and inspiring a fresh family pride.
Just to knowing that my great uncles did this and were able to start it up again basically means quite a bit, and hopefully my kids will be able to carry it on also.
I would say just like great-great-uncle Joe's recipe, we offer some of the smoothest, sweetest, and most healthful whiskey in all of South Dakota Territory.
Prohibition days are over. They're no longer dumping barrels of whiskey, and Moonshine can be made and sold in the light of day, including here in Kadoka. If you've met someone cool along the way, please call or email us to let us know. They say they planned a few more flavors that they're going to add to the collection, including chocolate.
Oh, that would be interesting.
And they do give free samples in their tasting room. They're not a bar, so they give free samples. And so if you want to check them out, go to exit 150 on I-90, and they're just off the highway.
Who knew?